Now that we have talked about the iCommand interface, it's time for us to start using it. We're going to have to implement it somewhere, and we're going to specify a command instead of what currently we have as event handlers. And we're going to start with the easier event handler that we have in our application. And that is the event handler for when the toolbar item inside of the home page is clicked, which is simply going to navigate to the new travel page. The first thing that we're going to do is create a new folder inside of the PCL, which is going to be the view model folder. Currently we have a model folder and we don't have a view folder, but we do have a lot of views. We are still lacking that view model section. So that is going to be a new folder that is going to be called view model. And inside of the view model, I am going to add another folder, which is going to be commands. So the commands aren't going to be the entire view model by themselves. They're going to be one part of it. And inside of the commands folder is where we're going to define the classes that are going to define the commands. We can start by defining a new class that is going to be navigation command, for example. So inside of the commands folder, I am going to add a new class, and this class is going to be navigation command. It's a good practice to name your commands command. And this is going to be inheriting from iCommand. To be able to use the iCommand interface, we need a using directive to system.windows.input, and then we're going to implement the interface. And notice that this has three members. An event that is can execute changed, and two methods, one can execute that returns a boolean, and one execute that doesn't return anything. I also want to set this class as public. And the first change that I want to make is to make the canExecute method to always return true. Currently, we don't have to make any evaluation to know if we are supposed to navigate to the new travel page. So we don't need any evaluation in here before returning true. This is always going to return true. And inside of the execute, I am going to be calling a method that will eventually execute the functionality. But that method, I am going to be defining it outside of this command class. I am going to be defining it inside of the actual view model. So I am going to right click on the view model and I am going to add a new class. This one is going to be home view model, or home VM for short. This is going to define the view model itself for the home page, and it's going to have to be public. And this one is not going to be inheriting from the iCommand, but it is going to have a public navigation command object. We do need to add a using directive to define the navigation command. And inside of the constructor for the home page, we're going to set navigation command, the object that we have just defined, to be a new navigation command. And we're also going to have a public void navigate, which will eventually have the functionality. It is this method, the one that we want to call from the navigation command. It has to be the view model, the one that has the functionality, and the command, the one that triggers it. So how do we call this method from the navigation command? Just like we would do in any scenario. We have to have an object of type home VM. So I can define a property inside of the command that is going to be of type home VM, and it's going to be home view model. And then I want a constructor for navigation command that is going to receive a home VM as a parameter, so the local property can be assigned to that variable. And because I have changed the definition of this constructor, I have to head back to the home VM where I am creating a new navigation command and pass the variable to the constructor, which in this case is of type home VM. And since we are on home VM, we can simply pass this. And with the object created, now we can head back to the execute method and use the home view model to call for the navigation command, which currently requires no parameters. So now that we have implemented the iCommand interface into this class, and that we have created the functionality from the view model that is going to be triggered from the command class, in the next lecture it's time for us to start calling this command instead of the current functionality, which is calling an event handler.